Have you ever felt invisible in a room full of people? Like you were the background character in your own story, watching others chase dreams, take chances, fall in love while you quietly settled for less. Because some part of you believed you didn't deserve more. You didn't say it out loud, you didn't even fully admit it to yourself. But deep down something whispered, you're not enough, not worthy enough, not strong enough, not lovable enough. That quiet voice, that's the echo of undervaluing yourself. And it's destroying your relationships, your confidence, and your ability to live with purpose. Most people think self-worth is a feeling you get after success, but the Stoics would tell you something different. That self-worth is not a prize you win, it's a discipline you cultivate. And if you don't confront the hidden ways you're undervaluing yourself, you will continue to give more than you receive. Settle where you should rise, and chase people who were never meant to be in your life. This video might just change your love life, your work life, your inner life, but only if you stay until the end. So let's begin with the first most common sign, and the one Marcus Aurelius himself would have warned you about. Sign number 1, you avoid conflict even when it costs you. Lena had always been the nice girl. She listened more than she spoke, smiled when she didn't feel like it, and whenever something upset her, she swallowed it whole. Whether it was a friend who canceled plans last minute, a coworker who dumped extra work on her desk, or a boyfriend who constantly made jokes at her expense, she let it go. Why? Because she believed being easygoing made her likable, because speaking up felt selfish, because she confused peacekeeping with self-respect. The Stoics had a word for this kind of false harmony, apatheia, but not in the modern sense of apathy. For them, it meant inner calm. But that calm was rooted in courageous clarity, not avoidance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think or do, only what you do. If you avoid conflict at the cost of your truth, your needs, your dignity, you're not choosing peace, you're choosing fear. You undervalue yourself when you decide that your comfort doesn't matter. When you believe that your role is to smooth the path for others, even if it tears your own shoes apart." But Lena's story doesn't end there. One day, her friend group planned a weekend trip. Everyone was invited except her. When she asked why, her friend casually said, "Well, you never speak up. We figured you wouldn't care." That's what happens when you avoid conflict. You don't just lose your voice. You lose your place in other people's lives. Sign there too, you apologize for things that don't require an apology. There's a subtle art to saying I'm sorry. It's powerful when it's authentic, but tragic when it's a reflex. Alex was one of those guys who said sorry for everything. Bumped into someone by accident? Sorry. Had a different opinion in a meeting? Sorry. Asked for help? Sorry. It was like a nervous tick. But underneath it was something deeper. A belief that taking up space was a kind of inconvenience, that existing in a way that impacted others, even slightly, was something to be ashamed of. Marcus Aurelius would have seen through this at once. He wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect. Apologizing for your existence, your preferences, your basic needs is the fastest way to dissolve your identity." The Stoics taught that we are part of the logos, the rational order of nature, that your place in this world is not something to shrink, it's something to embody. You undervalue yourself every time you say sorry for speaking honestly, for showing emotion, for needing rest, for being human. Alex didn't realize this until his girlfriend broke up with him. Her reason? You never stood up for yourself. You always said sorry even when it was me who was wrong. After a while, I couldn't respect you. Respect doesn't begin with others. It begins when you stop apologizing for who you are. Sign there are 3, you do too much for people who do too little for you. Ethan prided himself on being dependable. He was the one who showed up with jumper cables at midnight, the one who paid for dinner when friends forgot their wallets, the one who listened for hours without ever asking for anything in return. But slowly something began to shift. People stopped thanking him, started expecting more, and when he needed help, silence. He thought he was being a good friend, a good partner, a good man. But what he didn't realize was that he was training the world to undervalue him, because he was undervaluing himself. Seneca once said, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary." But what about a man who gives before it is necessary? Who gives without boundaries, without mutuality? The Stoics taught that virtue lies in balance, in justice, not in self-sacrifice without discernment. You undervalue yourself when you give to avoid rejection, when you overextend hoping someone will finally love you back, when you make yourself indispensable because you don't believe you're lovable simply as you are. One day, Ethan finally snapped. He was in the hospital after a car accident. He texted 5 people, close friends. Only one replied. None came. That was the moment he realized. He was giving in hopes of earning his worth. But worth isn't earned through exhaustion. It's recognized through self-respect. Sign number 4, you laugh at jokes that actually hurt you. Rebecca was the cool girl, the one who laughed along when guys made fun of her appearance, the one who brushed off just kidding comments that left a sting, the one who smirked when someone called her too emotional, too intense, too much. She thought her laughter made her seem unbothered. But inside, every chuckle chipped away at her identity. The Stoics believed in cultivating ataraxia, a state of inner tranquility that comes not from denying pain, but from understanding what is truly under your control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But what about laughing at what isn't right? What about smiling when you're being diminished? That's not strength. That's surrender. You undervalue yourself when you allow people to chip away at your spirit in the name of being chill. When you pretend it doesn't bother you, because you fear if you speak up, they'll leave. Rebecca finally reached a breaking point when she overheard one of her guy friends say, "She's fun to hang out with, she doesn't take herself seriously." That's when she realized they weren't laughing with her. They were laughing at her silence. Sign number 5, you say it's fine when it's not. There's a strange power in the phrase "I'm fine." It ends conversations. It avoids conflict. It pretends everything is okay. But "I'm fine" is often the graveyard where emotional needs go to die. Julian was the kind of man who always said he was okay. His girlfriend once forgot his birthday. He said it was fine. His boss gave his promotion to someone less qualified. Still fine. His friend stopped inviting him out. Fine. But inside, he was building a dam of unspoken disappointments. And like all dams, it eventually broke. The Stoics did not teach repression. They taught alignment between reason and reality. To speak truth with clarity, to accept what you feel and act according to virtue. Seneca wrote, "He suffers more than necessary, who suffers before it is necessary. But he also suffers, who suffers silently, believing his pain doesn't deserve air." You undervalue yourself every time you silence your truth to make others comfortable. When "I'm fine" becomes a mask you wear so no one sees you bleed. Julian finally lost his girlfriend, not because he was too emotional, but because he was too emotionally absent. She said, "You never let me in. I couldn't feel you. And I stopped trying." Truth has a cost, but silence costs everything. Sign number 6, you pretend to be low maintenance when you're actually starving for more. Sophia always said she didn't need much. "I'm easy. Whatever works for you. I don't want to be a burden." Her boyfriend forgot their anniversary. She laughed it off. Canceled a date last minute? No big deal. Didn't text for 3 days? I'm not the clingy type. But here's the truth. She did care. She just didn't believe she was allowed to. The Stoics taught moderation, yes, but they also taught honesty with oneself. To know what you need and not to be ashamed of needing it. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." But pretending you don't need anything is not power. It's fear disguised as detachment. Sophia once watched a friend's partner bring them flowers, just because. She smiled, said how sweet it was, but inside she ached, because no one had ever made her feel that thought of. That cherished. You undervalue yourself when you teach people not to try, when you act like the bare minimum is enough, because you fear asking for more makes you difficult. Low maintenance is not the same as low self-worth. But many confuse the two. And Sophia? She eventually left that relationship. Not because he was cruel, but because over time, she realized she'd built a life around not being disappointed. And in doing so, she starved herself of joy. Sign number 7, you over-explain yourself to gain acceptance. Noah couldn't help himself. Every time he said no, he followed it with a 200-word explanation. Every time he set a boundary, he softened it. Every time he had an opinion, he tried to defend it like he was in a courtroom. He thought if he could explain well enough, justify enough, prove himself enough, people would finally understand. And if they understood, maybe, they'd accept him. But here's the hidden cost of over-explaining. It tells the world you don't believe you're allowed to just exist. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." You don't need a 10-step rationale for your truth. You don't need permission slips for your boundaries. The Stoics taught that virtue lies in action, not persuasion. You act from clarity, not from a need to be liked. Noah finally realized this one night when he told a friend he couldn't make it to a party. He apologized profusely, explained he'd had a long week, needed rest, promised to make it up. The friend just replied, "Dude, it's okay. You can just say no." That moment cracked something in him. You undervalue yourself when you try to earn every inch of space you take up, when you defend every breath. When you believe your no is only valid if it comes with a TED Talk. Self-worth isn't something you explain. It's something you embody. Sign number 8. You chase people who barely choose you. Jasmine was always the one who tried harder. She double-texted. She initiated every call. She planned the dates. Picked the restaurants. Paid half, sometimes more. Her love wasn't toxic. It was consistent, available, earnest, but it was also never returned in full. And deep down she knew it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." Now apply that to your heart. If someone doesn't see your worth, why would their attention be worth chasing? You undervalue yourself when you beg for breadcrumbs from someone who'd never offer you a full meal. When you romanticize inconsistency because it feels like a challenge. When you confuse love with longing. Jasmine once spent an entire weekend helping her partner prep for a job. Interview, editing resumes, rehearsing answers, staying up late. The next weekend, he went on a trip with his friends and forgot her birthday. That's when she realized she was always the one choosing, and he was the one enjoying being chosen. The Stoics would have reminded her, love is a partnership between equals, and choosing someone who doesn't choose you is not love. It's self-abandonment. Sign number 9. You tolerate disrespect and call it understanding. Daniel believed in empathy. He believed everyone had a story. That hurt people. So when his partner belittled him during arguments, he forgave it. When his friend made cruel jokes, he rationalized it. When his boss talked down to him, he told himself, they're just under pressure. Understanding is noble, but tolerance of abuse is not stoic, it's self-destructive. Epictetus warned, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. The Stoics never taught that you must suffer fools. They taught resilience, yes, but not resignation. Daniel's mistake was thinking that compassion meant endurance. That letting things slide made him wise. But wisdom isn't silence in the face of harm. Wisdom is knowing when silence becomes complicity. You undervalue yourself when you twist cruelty into context. When you excuse behavior that chips away at your dignity because you want to be the bigger person. One day, after yet another demeaning comment from his partner, Daniel finally responded. He said, I understand where your pain comes from, but that doesn't mean I have to be its target. And that was the moment he reclaimed his self-respect. Sign number 10. You downplay your success so others don't feel uncomfortable. Juliet had worked for years to build her freelance design business from scratch. Late nights, unpaid gigs, missed birthdays, and finally, she landed a major client, tripled her income, and moved into a dream apartment. But when her friends asked how things were going, she smiled and said, oh, you know, same old, just lucky, I guess. Lucky? What she had done wasn't luck. It was discipline, grit, bold decisions. But she had learned, like many of us do, that dimming your light makes others feel safer. Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. But what if we extend that idea? Don't waste time explaining why your success is deserved. Just live it with quiet confidence. You undervalue yourself when you shrink for the comfort of others, when you downplay your wins to stay relatable, when you fear that being seen as excellent might isolate you. Stoicism is not about arrogance, it's about owning what is real, without needing applause or permission. Juliet finally stopped pretending when one of her old coworkers said, you know, you make it hard to cheer for you when you act like nothing matters. And that hit her, because she wanted to inspire, She just didn't believe she was allowed to shine too brightly. You don't serve the world by being small. You serve it by being authentic. Even if that means you're no longer everyone's comfort zone. Sign number 11, you fear being a burden for simply existing. Liam didn't ask for much. He never asked to be picked up from the airport. Never asked friends to come to the hospital when he had surgery. Never even told anyone he'd lost his job until months later. He thought he was being strong, independent, stoic. But what he was really doing was telling the world, I don't matter enough to be helped. The Stoics taught endurance, yes, but not the kind that isolates you from your own humanity. Seneca wrote, no man can live a happy life or even a supportable life without the study of wisdom continually. And wisdom includes learning to receive, not just to give. You undervalue yourself when you treat your needs as inconveniences, when you apologize for having emotions, when you assume that your presence is weight, not worth. Liam's turning point came in the form of a small text. After a tough week, he finally messaged a close friend and said, hey, I don't want to be dramatic, but I could really use some company tonight. The friend showed up with food, blankets, and a smile, and said, I was waiting for you to let me in. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to need, and to believe that your needs are not liabilities, but invitations to be seen. Sign number 12, you stay in spaces that don't see you. Amara was surrounded by people, smart people, funny people, but she always left conversations feeling hollow. When she spoke about her ideas, people changed the subject. When she shared her dreams, they said, be realistic. When she talked about her growth, they rolled their eyes. She laughed along. She nodded. She tried to fit in. But the truth? She was shrinking to stay acceptable. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. But what about the company we keep? The rooms we sit in? The energy we absorb? Stoicism teaches autonomy of mind, but it also warns of the influence of our environments. You undervalue yourself when you normalize emotional starvation. When you tell yourself, this is just how people are. When you betray your evolution to maintain someone else's comfort. One night, after yet another joke at her expense, Amara quietly left a group dinner early. She walked home in silence. No tears, no rage, just clarity. That night, she wrote a question in her journal. Why do I stay where I'm not celebrated? She didn't have the answer right away, but asking the question changed everything. Within 6 months, she had new friends, a new sense of peace, and a new standard. I will no longer bloom where the soil resents my roots. Closing narration. So here we are, 12 signs, 12 subtle acts of self-betrayal, 12 mirrors held up not to shame you, but to wake you. You see, undervaluing yourself doesn't always look like depression. It doesn't always wear the face of misery. Sometimes it looks like laughter at the wrong joke, like an I'm fine that hides a scream, like working overtime for people who wouldn't notice if you disappeared. Stoicism teaches us to master the self, to examine what is within our control, to stop chasing validation like wind in our fists, and instead to anchor ourselves in truth. Because when you stop undervaluing yourself, you stop accepting scraps, you stop settling for one-sided love, you stop walking into rooms that demand your silence. And in that moment, everything changes. Your relationships change, your work changes, your love life changes, because you finally attract what reflects your inner standard, not your unhealed wounds, not because you became louder, but because you finally became clear. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.